What we just saw with Aldo on the screen a few minutes ago actually leads us into our next session, which talks about the evolution of convenience and experience. We're talking about digital disruption, but what it really means is the need for a fresh customer service strategy. Retailers need to integrate far more, they need to be more connected, they need to have seamless systems that take them from in-store, outside, back home, getting people back in the store again. It's got to be fast, it's got to be seamless, it's got to be efficient, it's got to be customized, and it's got to offer a multitude of choices. Talking about the in-store experience, how we're going to provide better customer service, I'd like to call on our panel for this afternoon. Our lead presentation and moderator, Vikram Idnani, Senior Vice President and IT Head at Reliance Retail. Anil Shankar, Vice President Shopper Stop. Bhavik Javeri, Founder and CEO at Preta. Chirag Bunlia, Vice President IT at Virtuous Retail. Virender Singh, Head of Sales, India and Africa for Intellect Commerce. D. Bhaskar Murthy, Vice President Sales and Service for Posiflex. Hemant Shilvant, Head of Personalization Technologies at Robert Bosch. Hanuman Taneti, AVP and Head E-Commerce in Ata Software. John Mullins, Director Asia Pacific IBM Watson Customer Engagement. And Adam Davies-Smith, Managing Partner to One Off London. Anil Menon, Head of IT at Trent Hypermarket.
So we are 11 of us, just like the Indian cricket team. A lot of us for 1 hour, right? I thought I'll just start, not get into my presentation or any discussion, just get on with it. So bottom line, the Indian customer has moved their shopping experience from the brick and mortar side. They've got the online piece, and now they've, with the advent of smartphones and all that stuff, they're able to shop in a digital manner, right? As a customer, what does that mean to me? I am now engaging with the brand across multiple channels, right? And that's where the complexity starts to come in, because retailers now have to engage this customer across various channels and provide a consistent experience. So what I'd like to do is, with all of this complexity, have a chat with this panel and dwell on this point about the complexities that are involved with multiple channels and how do they create a consistent experience for the customer. Yeah. So I'm going to start by asking the retailers. There's Anil Menon and there's Anil Shankar from the retail space. I'd like to understand, what does, maybe I'll start with Anil, what does customer experience mean for you in your context? If you can just share that with me.
Okay, good evening everyone. To take that question, I think customer experience, I think in today's days is, it's a total experience. It's about, it's far more encompassing, and it's not about just a moment of magic that we used to earlier believe is a experience element. It has to be far more encompassing. It has to be a combination of speed, convenience, discovery, and surprise. As you cut across channels, if you're a retailer and you are into multiple channels, it's also about how you are tying down the experience of the customer across these channels, and where does the online to offline and offline to online takeover happens, and how seamless that is. And that's how I see very briefly in terms of customer experience.
Sure, okay. Anil, would you like to share your view on it? What is customer experience and why does it matter?
For me, if a customer just moves out of my retail format, I need him to have a thought of saying, I like it, what I went through. I want to come back to this place. No matter it is an offline mode, it's an online mode, I need the customer to feel awe about what happened in the experience at each different levels, at the product level, at the customer service level, the checkout level, and when you are actually moving out of the premises. I want him to feel when he goes back saying that, oh, I want to come back. That's more a statement.
So if I understand right, you're saying at the various touch points, you want to ensure that the customer has the right experience across various touch points, right? Chirag, you are from the retail space, from the malls. Can you share with us your view on why customer experience matters, given that malls are getting, becoming destination places
Sure.
right now?
So we are in the business of creating, social hubs, and it's like glorified form of all melas which we used to have. So extremely important. So for us, retail is secondary, consumer becomes paramount. Consumer is the number one factor for us to look into it, and so what we do is we act as a catalyst. We create a social fabric between all the all the stakeholders, be it retailers, be it consumers, be it technology as a partner to enable the business solutions. So we are very curious and keen towards customer touchpoints or retailers touchpoints or employees touchpoints. We are very focused and are very determined to bring a change there.
Okay, can you just share a little bit about the how part of it? You said we're sensitive about it.
So it has evolved over a period of time, and probably when we started studying, consumers were the center of all discussions, like customer relationship management, and consumer used to be at the center of all the charts. It evolved and customer became king, and it evolved eventually, customer became God, and now we are saying that we need to know exactly which God it is, right? So we try and aspire to know each and every consumer. We tailor-made and we identify consumer and then personalize the offerings as much as we can, and all touch points probably which our fellow panelists talked about.
So we'll talk about personalization a little bit later. I'd like to also now get onto the supplier side, who provide tools and solutions to the retailers. As suppliers, your task is really to understand what the retailer wants and provide the right kinds of tools, right? How does customer experience of your customer's customer, so to say, how does that matter to you? And how do you get to understand it, given that you are second level kind of away from the customer?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I like to put like this. Like, we have a family back home, right? So how do we satisfy our family, right? So we have 5 days of work, managing the wife and family. So essentially is that you make her take to a shopping, then certain amount of your wallet is spent so that your customers are happy, okay? So satisfying the wife at end of the day or end of the week to ensure that the basics, bare basics of our life going on is something very essential, that as a supplier to the retail outfit, looking at it, ensure that customer does the basics of billing, robust billing, make sure that the basics are done properly done, just the bare minimum. Then look at how the customer will get delight by extending the technology solution in a way it is usable. So today the digital disruption is just overboarding it, okay? So just make the life simple, ensure that the robust billing systems are done, and work around towards a mobility solution, work around towards the addressing the pain points of the customer, so that the retailer investment makes meaningful. Okay, so we work with a lot of retailers to understand that. So that's why the customers are very important for us,
So
to understand the pulse.
Sure. So in your context, you're talking about essentially the billing and checkout, right? Hemant, would you like to share a little bit about a broader aspect, with respect to customer experience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vikram. For us, it's important because while we are talking about a B2B2C, it's important to cater to the requirements of C in a broader spectrum. So it becomes important that user experience forms a major factor. And as suppliers, we take all steps to ensure that we do a proper user experience study, because a person going to a FMCG, a grocery store, versus a person going to a apparel, there's a completely different aspect to it. Yeah, so customer experience in the form of how can you ensure that the customer would want to keep coming back to the store forms a major aspect from my perspective.
Okay. So from what I understand, take away from this, what it means to the different retailers is that the different touch points need to be satisfactory from a customer perspective. You talked about hygiene, Bhaskar, about hygiene factors like make sure that the checkout experience is good and smooth, and you talked about the fact that you want to get the customer back, find ways to get the customer back, which means you've got to create the right kind of an experience. Sure. I think we need to get a little bit more into detail because this is still just the what part of the experience. How is it evolving? So maybe Adam, if you could share with us, how do you see that customer experience is evolving on the store side of things?
Well, I think we talk at length about retail stores as if they're one thing, and they're plainly not. Every store needs to be categorized in some form, whether it's a brand space, is it a gallery, is it a needs-based supermarket. As soon as you start to understand what its function is to your consumers, then you can start to understand what the retailer's role within the purchase is. The second thing is when we talk about experience, we need to talk about great experience because we can certainly communicate what we want to any consumer through any part of the touch point in a buying path. You just got to go next door, you can see what these guys are capable of doing. As retailers, we've got to make sure we get the right information to the right consumer at the right time. And it needs to be amazing. We can't be talking to consumers with the wrong message that's just off pitch. Because if we're going to start talking to them as individuals and start saying, I really know you so well, and the first time we speak to them, we get their name wrong, that's when it all falls apart. So there is a balance, I think, in consumer experience. We need to know, firstly, what the role of the retail space is, and that needs to be amazing. I mean, retail generally, 25 years ago, I was designing a store in Levi's in San Francisco, and it was phenomenal. I look at stores now, and they are okay, most of them. They're certainly not amazing spaces you want to spend 3 hours in. And I think that is a role of architects and interior designers to improve in that. And the second thing is communication in store. The tech guys have given us so many things that we can play with as designers. Well, we need to start playing with them. I mean, you've got iBeacons, you can blockchain track things, you can do so much. And yet we're only in the last 18 months really starting to play with how we can make product interact differently with consumers and make all the digital and environment change, whether it be audio or the lighting levels can change by day part, or as you pick a product up, the digital content around you can directly communicate with you personally. And I mean, as a designer, I'm just in an amazing space. So I've got all these IT guys who have suddenly joined the marketing team. And it's like, yes.
So Adam talked about product, ambience, what were the other points? You said product, ambience, messaging, the right kind of messaging. Anil, from your point of view, Shopper Stop in India, right? So he's speaking from experience abroad. Shopper Stop in India, how are you engaging or how do you see customer experience at Shoppers going ahead in the context of product and messaging and ambience that he talked about?
So just stepping back a bit onto your earlier question around how it is evolving. I think there was a time when you just put the products in your store and the customer will come and buy. It was as simple as that. And that's how simple was the customer journey. Customer will do self-browsing, self-picking, and with little bit of assistance, I think, shopping experience. I think then came assortment, importance of assortment and availability.
Okay.
And of course, the speed and convenience slowly got added onto it. In the current context, if you look at it, with so much happening and the consumer is probably spoiled for choices from online and various other offerings, as I mentioned earlier also, it has to be far more encompassing in terms of particularly product, in a way that the assortment to the customer segment has to be extremely right. And there has to be communication which is far more personalized. It's the segment of one that which is we are coming back to now, saying that the customer segmentation, bunching a group of customers, saying that, okay, you fall into this segment of customer no longer works. You have to see each customer as one customer and personalize to that level. And that's something that we are striving towards. Another initiative that we have started just recently around, again, building the best experience in the store is towards assisted selling. We are calling it personal shopper, wherein the customer journey mapping happens in such a way that from the time the customer steps into the store or even before he starts the journey, if he's shopping for a theme or a event, there is a personal shopper assistant or a fashion advisor to take them through the entire shopping experience. So those are some of the initiatives that we are trying to do in order to kind of improve the level of experience.
Okay, so you talked about personalization essentially, but aren't there other things, maybe I can pass it on to Anil once more, aren't there other things on the efficiency front that you can improve, that can improve the experience? So for example, today if someone wants to go and buy a grocery, wants to buy their grocery items, they have a shopping list on their phone, right? You can write the list on your, kind of type it in on your phone, go into the shop, it actually tells you where to go and pick up the product and go and check out. Do you have anything of that sort? Or do you see it evolving towards that?
Yes, we see it evolving to that level because there are 2 or 3 factors which drives the experience part of it. With most of our customers being millennials, they have this information bombarding to them. For example, now everyone has become too health conscious. You need organic food, you need so and so forth with the grocery. Yeah. So what we are trying to do right now as a step 1 is that giving you an information while you pick up, say for example, you come to my store and you pick up a pack of mushrooms for the matter. We have QR codes which are very simple to look at. You scan it, you find it from which farm is come, what are the organic matters to it, what have been added, what is the age of it, and so forth. Even to the level of what recipes can be brought in with this mushroom, which you are not aware of, right? That's the first step we are taking. And the list which we are speaking about, or which we are looking at, for a grocery perspective, yes, I have what you have brought in last purchase of yours, which I can populate for you, and you have your own list of it. But still, you want to upsell. There are products which are at the store which you need to upsell. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to amalgamate both of this and say that, okay, we suggest a list of yours, and you work on it. That's what we are looking at now.
Okay. Bhavik, I'm going to pass it on to you from a marketplace point of view. How do you see customer experience evolving?
So being a mobile app, being a utility on the shopping side, I think what we do is we segment this into 3 different categories, right? So there's something called as destination experience, there's something called as product experience, and third is consumer experience. Now what's happening today is billions of dollars are getting invested in creating destinations. 50 million plus square feet of mall space has been created, billions of dollars been spent to create digital spaces across. So the infrastructure is getting created in destination, and that's becoming probably the differentiation. But the way we look at it, the destination is easy to, in terms of creating destination and probably replicating destinations is the simplest way to do. Product differentiation, yes, we leave it to retailers, manufacturers. They are really I would say experts of creating those differentiation and leading to it. But the third piece, which is primarily the consumer experience, and most of the retailers or malls across the country, they're trying to differentiate on consumer experience. But ideally, that's not the space how we look at it, that where we become more competitive. If consumer experience is what is differentiating you and not your destinations or your products, I think consumer experience is given. So if we look back to banking sector, right, ATMs was never a unique thing to happen. It just happened for 1 and then 2 and 10. How consumer experiences have evolved in sectors beyond retail is by creating collaboration capabilities. The interbank transfers, the interbank, ATMs. So consumer experiences have to be not looked as a competitive edge, but looked as a collaborative edge because it's given. If you don't serve your consumers, so the way blockchain is evolving, the loyalty exchanges are getting created, we believe that consumer experience is not going to be the differentiator. It's the product and destinations and how you create collaboration in consumer experience so that consumers have a seamless experiences irrespective of the destination because eventually it's their natural loyalty to a product or a destination which should drive an experience is given.
So just want to put one question out to the audience. Yeah, how many of you guys go to apparel stores, for example, pick up a sari or a shirt that looks very nice of a certain color, wear it in the trial room and find that it looks fantastic, okay? But when you go home and watch it in your tube light, under your tube light, how does it look? How many of you guys have that experience where, you know, where the product looks really good in the shop when you tried it, but when you go home it doesn't look so good? Anyone? Yeah. So you know what that comes down to is one of the aspects which I'm going to talk about, is about appealing to the senses of the customer, yeah, the visual sense of the customer, and what are stores doing? In fact, I'll give you one example. I was talking to one of the manufacturers of lights. What they're doing now in trial rooms, they actually give you 3 different options of lights that you can try out. Okay, so you have natural light, you have the tungsten, the yellow light, and you have a tube light. You can actually try out that shirt or a sari or whatever you are buying. You can actually try it out in different lights and then be able to make sure you made a better choice. That is customer experience. Again, that's providing the option, making sure what you bought is what you actually are going to wear. So that's one aspect of it. So let me come back to John. Yeah. On the tech side, okay, with so much happening, I know that IBM is doing some work on the artificial intelligence, etc. You've got a tech platform that's being built, right? How do you see CX evolving and how is that being fed into the tech that you are providing?
It's an interesting question. I think, it's no secret that IBM is betting very large on artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, and we're doing a lot here in the local market in India with clients like ABOF and many others. I think, what are we doing that relates specifically to customer experience? I think one of the ways we're sewing together the experience both online and offline to be able to map through the whole customer journey and all the different touch points a customer may relate to a retailer. And then we're overlaying what's in our augmented intelligence engine to look at what's the most effective way in which we can take a specific interaction and move a customer through that journey to turn them from somebody who's maybe researching into somebody that's actively engaged with our online brand and somebody who becomes an advocate for that brand via social media and other contexts. So the real answer to your question is sewing together the journey that a customer takes online and offline and putting augmented intelligence on top of that. We're doing that via some of our software as a service applications that are being used in the India market today by many of the major retailers.
Okay. Do you have one example that you can share of this type?
Yeah, I think there's lots of examples.
So that is more concrete for...
yeah, sure. So let's look at what ABOF is doing with natural language processing, right? Okay. So what we call NLP, using IBM Watson on their online site that enables real conversational text to be entered into search fields. So rather than knowing what I'm searching for, right, and putting down the exact term that says, I want this kind of dress or this kind of outfit, what I can do on ABOF's mobile site is simply get onto their mobile site and type in, I'm looking for an outfit for a cocktail party, or I'm looking for an outfit for a wedding. And Watson driving those search terms is smart enough to know where that question is being asked from, what the question is that it's asking, and how that relates to the lookbooks and the different items that ABOF have in their catalogue for sale. So it's about delivering a much more intelligent result for a real contextual question in online search. That would be an example of how AI from IBM is being used at ABOF today.
Okay, so the way I interpret that is it's making it really simple for the customer. Right?
And you've hit the nail on the head. It's about simplicity.
It's about simplicity, yeah. There's no brains involved. So how many of you have coffee at a Starbucks? You want to raise your hands? And how many of you have it at a cafe coffee day, for example? Yeah, maybe, okay. Do you see any difference, minus the product, okay, minus the actual taste of the coffee or the price? Do you see any difference when you're walking into either of the two shops or places, whatever? Okay.
The ambience is classier at Starbucks, and the look and feel of the place is way more, it looks good. It feels good to be there. It looks like it caters to a little higher segment of the society, whereas Cafe Coffee Day is more of, you find younger generation sitting there and, having a cup of coffee and conversations and fun and all that.
Okay. So I'll give you one more one more piece of information. When you walk into a Starbucks,
Hey, sit down.
Yeah, sure,
Thanks.
you can please sit down. This is not a class. So when you walk into a Starbucks, somebody will shout out something.
And that,
right?
the personalization bit is very nice.
Personalization, exactly. And you will also smell the coffee.
Yes.
And you will also see them making it right in front of your eyes, right? You don't see that in some of the other places. And that's again where personalization comes in and creating the right kind of ambience. As I said, appealing to the senses, so visual, smell, all that kind of stuff, yeah? So let's go a little bit ahead and talk about the personalization front. Adam, since this is your area of expertise, can you share a little bit about how personalization is happening and how can it be applied in our context?
Well, I think in retail, the first thing, again, we talk about retail being one thing. So when we talk about, I say Starbucks, but I could pick any brand around the world. As soon as we start to look at each retail space by format, by location, by its even role within the brand, because some of these stores are pretty big landmark sites in capital cities, they have a very different function and a very different budget that's put into them. Now, a store like a flagship in the middle of, I'd say London, where I'm from, they're pretty amazing spaces, and so they should be, because they're there to not just talk about the product, they're there to express what the brand is about. And in retail, we're trying to build a relationship between the consumer and the brand through the product. And these big brand spaces, this is where these brands have the opportunity to get the consumers to really know them. Now, when you take that from a large format side, it's relatively simple, and yes, you'll use all the senses. And all we're trying to do is get consumers to love us a bit more. We're humans, that's all we love. When it comes down to smaller footprint sites, and we're trying to get 1,000 square feet, that's when you've got to be really clever. And I think that's when you need to really understand what is the role of that space, because the kind of experiential design you may put in a flagship of 10,000 square feet, or even in a supermarket of 100,000 square feet, it's very different when you've got a 1,000 square foot store in the middle of a mall. Because one, there's a limit to what you can do, and secondly, and probably the biggest thing, is you've got a cost issue. That's where you need to be clever. And I think some of the experiences you can put in are places that are less about the brand as an emotional space, and more about the brand doing something for me that is so well attuned to what my needs are that I think, actually, I quite like you. And if you think of it as a consumer experience, one person to one person, a brand to a retailer to a consumer, then the retailer can start to do things that are beyond just experience. Because we don't always want to have a party with our brand. We don't always want to walk into a flagship and have an hour and a half worth of shopping experience. Sometimes we just want to get in and get out. That doesn't change the experience. It just that means there's different parts of our experiential toolkit that we can use depending on what format and our location and the customer need.
Chirag, yeah, again, from a mall perspective, given that there is so much of an opportunity for you to provide different types of experiences for the customers, can you talk to us about what are some of the personalizations that you are doing?
Perfect. So, I mean, let me cite an example as a if you as a consumer.
Louder. Just speak into it.
Okay, so let me cite an example. You as a consumer walk into one of our center, probably our lifestyle destination center, we are Bengaluru. The moment you walk in, the first thing is like you probably want to latch on to your Wi-Fi or you want to use your mobile data, right? So the first thing is like if you are a repeat customer and if you have already latched on, if you have already used Wi-Fi in our center, we will exactly know you. You don't need to re-register what you do in airports. We exactly know. We'll say, welcome Vikram Midnani. This is the password for the day, right? So that's number one.
Shout my password out.
So, yeah, so subscription-based privacy and all will come to it. Yeah, that's very valid point, which is true, but it's subscription-based. You latch onto the Wi-Fi, you get the OTP, right? And we know exactly who you are, right? That's one. Second is based on your interest, based on your profile, it'll trigger a notification which could be like, if you're a health freak, which probably I know, it'll actually shoot out a message that we have a gym around here. Right? We have a gym, we have a community driven gym. We have a yoga station, yoga deck there. Those kind of notifications would be passed on to you depending on your profile, which is again curated and collected over the course of customer data. You walk in and probably you roam around in the center. If it is for the first time, I don't have the face, I don't know who you are, but I know where you are roaming in the center. Right? I have that level of detailing. And in any point in time, if you subscribe to any of our services, like it could be a food court, it could be a hotel, it could be a yoga, it could be a gym, whatever it is. If you latch onto it, I know I have a face now and I know who you are and what you are doing. And the next level is like, walk into the food court, right? So we know exactly what you have been ordering now. Right? So we can probably, trigger a message saying that you probably like an Italian food. So there is a Toscano and there is an Italian food flavor for the day.
I'm looking for a little bit more of the wow factor. Yeah. There is so much technology happening today in the market, around here. Are you introducing any specific things like augmented reality, VR kind of, or virtual reality types of solutions? And I'll give you guys an example once you're done of someone doing it in India, in fact in Mumbai. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's not augmented reality. We actually made an attempt. We wanted to do a gaming based on augmented reality. We have one of the largest outdoor screen in the country now. So we are trying to do a PlayStation or a community-driven gaming using that screen. So that's work in still progress. But the idea is to bring all of these things, all of these consumers, as a part of the social fabric, and then curate an experience which is probably lasting.
Okay, so I'll give you the example of one of the movie cinema companies. I just won't name them. One of the malls in Mumbai. So when parents come with kids, they want to leave their kids around and maybe until the movie starts, they want to leave their kids around and maybe do some of their own stuff. They can actually leave their kids in a certain area where the kids now are able to kind of visualize themselves inside a zoo or animals walking around them. I just saw a video of this before I came in, and that's why I wanted to mention it. But they're actually using augmented reality for the kid to be able to visualize themselves and actually feel so nice about it. So that's really what people are doing and starting to create the wow factor with augmented reality, virtual reality. And I think this is obviously probably something you will look at doing a lot more, I'm assuming. You want to say something? You want to share your view on this one?
Look, I think that that augmented reality Yeah, I'm on. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities that can be harnessed by the Indian online retail community almost before we get to augmented reality and artificial intelligence. You know, I think that if I look at from an outsider's point of view, right, what do I see that's being done very, very well here? What do I see that's world leading in India in the online retail space? And there's no question that in terms of mobile commerce, that we're seeing more innovation happen here than anywhere else in the world, right? So I think that's the first point to make, that there are some fantastic things that are world leading that are happening in the online retail business right here. The second thing that I'd like to add to that is, I think that with a lot of foreign entrants coming into the Indian market, marketplaces, a lot of foreign investment, expectation from an omni-channel point of view from all of us. So when we hit the button that says order, right? What's our expectation of an international marketplace versus a local marketplace? Are they the same expectation? Because frankly, the experience should be identical. And if I had to highlight one area where I think we as technology providers should be focusing more, it's assisting the Indian online retail businesses to be world's best practice in omni-channel fulfillment. So in order to harness that trust from the local market and to beat the international players. So that would be my perspective. I think that there's some great stuff being done. There's some areas that we can help.
Yeah.
And I think both of those things come before getting to augmented reality and AI, right? That's just my view.
Yeah, sure, that's absolutely right. But I think they both can happen in parallel. I don't think it is a sequential activity because it's a B2C kind of a situation. Most important, you have to fulfill what you promise. That's fundamental. But to engage the customer, there are opportunities to do that.
Vikram, I can just add a bit of experience that we had.
Sure.
We tried augmented reality sort of a experiment maybe a year back. Try on and magic mirror sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So there are multiple things here. One is in terms of customer experience, does it add any value? It does. It does probably add a novelty factor to the customers to try out something new. Does it add to the convenience? Yes, to some extent. But when you talk about the completeness of the solution or how seamless is the solution, I think these are technologies which hold a lot of opportunity, a lot of promise, and there is definitely a lot of opportunity. But are they off the shelf? The answer is no. Are there the entire partner ecosystem and the technology service provider come together to put a solution for the retailer? Probably we are getting there, we are not yet there. Sure. At least in Indian context I'm talking about. And the most important question is that, is it leading to conversion? Or is it that's largely what you would want as a retailer, that's what you would want to do, right? If you are putting so much of money into a specific technology or you have done the customer journey mapping and you feel saying that yes, it is helping, but at the same time it should help the retailer as well. So that's probably where I think there is still a lot of road to be still traversed. I think, yes, it holds a lot of promise, but we would want to see this really translating to more customer, if not footfall, at least conversion.
I think it's an interesting point of debate because you will not look at conversions when you install digital screens in your stores. You're not going to ask that question of, does it add to my conversion? So my simple point to that is, yes, there are these B2C kind of wow factor technologies, and it's up for debate actually.
As long as it is adding the customer path to purchase and it is adding value, there is definitely, then obviously the question also is that at what level of investment you are achieving that.
And how seamless is it? I think the bottom line, how convenient is it, how easy to use is it? So let's get on to Hanumant, if I can ask you from a supplier perspective. Personalization, how are you designing your tools to be, to cater to the personalization factor for customers?
Sure. So, one thing which we have seen is that the whole buying cycle, traditionally was when somebody walked into a store and the moment of truth was when they picked up that and tried it on and then liked it. But now that whole moment of truth is actually moving much forward. So a person today is not, very rarely is actually going into the store and then picking up. Before that, he's doing a lot of research online and then is actually checking out the product and looking at reviews and ratings and things like that before he actually or he or she walks into a store to pick up the product.
Sure.
So our focus has been around how do we make that experience of the consumer in terms of giving him the right information so that that person can make that choice. I mean, it could be in terms of getting information from social media, it could be getting information from past purchases that that person might have done, right? Or information also from what is selling well from, say, from a retailer's perspective and things like that. So that information providing in a personalized way, because at the end of the day, it's not about this is what people are buying, but this is what is very important for you, or this is what you should like or you may like. So getting that information to that person and the tools around that, right from being able to do your recommendations to actually doing your analytics and
so
things like that.
do you have an example of this?
Sure.
Of what you are doing?
Right. So what we've done is specifically in case of retail. Okay, it's more in a case of, say, something like travel retail. Mm-hmm. Okay, there what we've done is that based on a person's choices because travel becomes slightly different because you always don't end up going to a beach holiday. Right? So if you've gone to a beach holiday, next time it may be a choice that you may not go to a beach holiday, you may go to another holiday. Sure. Okay. So that also gets to in taking that factor into play of being able to say that if this person has gone there, so we need to look at another choice and providing that and inputs for that. And then looking at what are other inputs in terms of reviews and ratings from people, because at the end of the day, when you were to buy a hotel room, right, you always look at what are the reviews that are there and things like that before you actually decide. So in terms of, so in case of examples like travel, your whole moment of truth is when you're actually experiencing it, but your purchasing is done much earlier. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we've been able to do in terms of actually getting in recommendations and analytics around that, which essentially helps you in terms of actually doing the whole process and making the experience much better.
Okay, great. Virender, you have been working on certain solutions, right, for the retail space. Can you share your experience on how you are looking at personalization and some examples of what you are doing on that front?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start on for as I being the supplier for my retailers also. So it becomes a dual responsibility on to us that wherein we have to understand that what are the requirements of my retailer as such, who is my person to be serviced onto the same. So first thing that personalization I have to do is for the retailer, that what kind of a retailer is into what kind of a business. Because it could not be one generic rule that would be applicable to everyone out there into the industry as such. So same thing applies to the retailers also. Like retailers would be having different assortment, different product line and different target market as such. So it could not be the one simple thing that should be available to you out there. So the idea for us is, first thing is that we personalize the solution for the retailer as such, so that he can actually do the way he wanted to do the business and what market he is actually targeting and what exactly are his target audience as such. To what level of personalization he wanted to give, that we provide the tools to do and achieve the same. So the idea for us is that we allow the retailer to actually engage the customers onto the long-term basis onto the same. Because end of the day, it's always that you have to have a long-term customer who you can actually retain over the period of time. Because in this cutthroat competition, it's important that you actually retain that. And you keep on constantly engaging the same with him. So the other aspect that I would actually like to highlight is herein that if we do a replenishment, so what we do is there are the tools and there are the fixed parameters and attributes. Based upon that, your replenishment would be actually planned. But what might happen is that I had actually taken previous 6 weeks or 10 weeks of a sale as such, and then based upon that, the system could actually give you the recommended order quantity that needs to be given. But that might not happen because you are actually expecting a festival season to be coming up and you want to add more onto it. So what I wanted to highlight here is that it's the tools that we provide onto the same that are personalized as per the retailer, which could further be personalized to the customer and the audience, what they are targeting for.
But
So-
what tools are you providing for that? That's what I'm
Yeah.
be interested
So,
in understanding.
like I had highlighted that we are actually there into the engage model onto the same. So it is the next level of loyalty that we are providing onto the same. So if the retailer actually wants that he has to actually get engaged with the customer onto the long-term basis, we can actually analyze what are the buying trends as such and what exactly he has been buying.
So basically, you're talking about data analytics,
Yes.
analyzing the data and being able to provide some insight out of that.
Exactly. So
Which-
it's the
which they have to take
360-degree
action.
in and
Okay.
360-degree out that we actually are providing them.
Okay. Hemant, can you share with us a little bit about what are the kinds of tools and technologies that are today kind of arising and becoming more popular on the personalization front?
Thanks, Vikram. So I would say being relevant is the more important thing. Yeah, today personalization technologies are about a trend level personalization, a group level personalization. This person is in this age bracket and 60% of people in this age bracket like this. What is next? The next is one-to-one personalization. At Bosch, we are working on technologies which is edge-based, mobile-based, where you can actually deliver the right relevant information to a person on their mobile. The best part about it is secure, which means that your data stays on your mobile. It is relevant for the retailer because retailer did not worry about too much of data. What do I do with this data? Because you know that you have the data, relevant data in your mobile to help you to help deliver the relevant promotions or even information. Just a simple example. For me, whenever I go to an apparel store to buy, if let's say a personal assistant in the mobile can tell me, okay, this is the new blue or black or white shirt which is available, that's fine for me. But if I go to buy something for my wife and let's say a Reliance jewelry store, and it says my assistant or the personalization engine can tell me, for our last birthday you bought this, for our last anniversary you bought this. By the way, there is this new set of, let's say, bangles which goes with the other two which you bought. That's personalization for me. But technologies are evolving. As we go along, as cell phones become more and more powerful, it is much more easier and also more relevant to actually implement the engines on the edge.
Are you aware of anyone using AI-based solutions that are actually helping on the personalization front?
Yeah. So AI or machine learning is quite important because the preferences of the person keep evolving. What I buy today, it may change because let's say I got married or let's say I got a new job. So the brand affinity, the brand value keeps increasing. So this is learned by the engine. There could be offers or promotions which I take up or which someone else doesn't take in. So there would be certain different kind of promotions or different kind of information that we need to provide to each person. That is where AI or ML comes in.
Okay, John, I'd like to get some inputs on the use of artificial intelligence and what is IBM doing on this front.
Okay, so I think the best way to think about artificial intelligence when you're talking about personalization and marketing, right, online marketing, is really to think about what we've done in Watson marketing, which is it's about putting a data scientist's expertise in the hands of any sort of business user out there. How have we done that? I think the real lowering of the barrier, right? Because in the past, these kind of solutions were very expensive and were only used by the biggest of customers, and that's changed. And what's changed that, and what the India market has embraced greatly, is software as a service delivery models. So the whole concept of, rather than going and building something, subscribing to an existing service that has these kind of very powerful AI functions built into it is something that we're doing today. So anybody that subscribes to our Watson marketing solutions via the cloud gets access to advice on what campaigns they should be running, what offerings and offers they should be making, who they should be making them to, what their competitors are doing in this space. And that sort of advice in the past took a lot of data analysts and even some data scientists. So the real message is what cost a lot of time and money before, today is accessible even to small businesses at low cost.
Excellent. Anil, from a store, on the store perspective, are you looking at any AI-based solutions? And do you think, how far do you think are these from adoption or even pilot stage?
So we have done pilots before, and we are continuing to do pilots. There are some partners who have been working very closely with us. And as I said, I think even when we have done pilots like Magic Mirror or Smart Mirrors, it definitely holds a lot of promise. And it shows that once all the pieces come together and it is seamless, it probably will definitely deliver the kind of business objectives that we are setting. And it's, in a way, it's part of our roadmap that we will adopt these things. So I may not be able to share all the initiatives that are happening, but I see a lot of promise. I definitely see a lot of promise. So the way I look at it is, it's good to experiment it, try it out, and then see if it is not working, and then probably correct that again, bring it back again. And the most important thing is to kind of look at your shopping journey and then look at the customer path to purchase and bring in the right set of solutions into that.
So Bhavik, how is...
So I think AI, primarily AI starts with data learning, right? So it's not going to be experimental for sure. It has to be given its time to even make. So initially AI will have only abundant cases. You know, you'll keep on learning, and then eventually derive some results out of it. So harvesting is the most important part of AI. So we'll have to go and invest today. So we start harvesting data, reharvest that data, and eventually make some sense out of it. I think it's not about implementing AI and getting decisions tomorrow for sure.
Okay. But how do you see adoption of this happening? Is it close by? Is it a few months away? What do you think about it?
I think people are investing heavily in creating, and as he rightly mentioned, you know, so technologies are available. They're available in the cheapest possible form. I think we have to just identify. So we also taking cue from what he was trying to mention was that probably consumer data is available in abundance, but what's not available is business understanding that how do we be relevant to that consumer data, right? So machine learning is required to tell business that, so for example, I know that, okay, these are the people who buy this kind of products, but what is that classification of products from business side? Do we even know that these two brands fall in this segment or this style type or this attribute families? So eventually, if the customer is falling between these style types and attribute types, these are the products to be recommended. So if you're not able to do the learning on the data attribution on the product side, eventually, even if I have consumer data, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely right. So there's some internal work to be done from the retailer perspective before you actually look at an AI-based solution. Sure, makes sense. I want to just run this now all across you. If each of you have to highlight one priority item for any retailer that they need to look at if they want to improve their customer experience, what would be that one thing that you would say? That's your top priority, and I'll go top to bottom, left to right.
Yeah, I would play it internally. I would say giving enough of knowledge to our employees to cater to the customer is what we should be looking at. The trainings, the data which they would require for.
Okay. Training, that's what you said. Okay.
So I think the area that I'd highlight would be what I was saying earlier. I think the biggest opportunity for improvement and therefore competition on the world stage for Indian online retailers is around fulfillment excellence. So for me, I think there's a whole lot of creativity here, but for me the word would be fulfillment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so in my case, I would say it is more about personalization and your ability to internally be able to offer that understanding so that from a customer, from a retailer's perspective, you can offer that personalization to your customers.
Okay, making it relevant for the customer basically. Yeah.
I think top of my mind, I would say single identity checkout.
Single
Identity checkout. Can I make a world which allows me to do a common identity to check out across retailers? And I think that's where collaboration comes in picture, competitiveness. For example, I want to see a movie today. Can I exchange my PVR, my Shopper Stop loyalty to get a PVR loyalty and eventually go to movie? So kind of a single identity checkout, I'll say, the top of my mind.
I would say that I think most important thing is to do the customer journey mapping properly. That probably holds a key to a lot of problems that you may be seeing on the customer experience side. A lot of technology can come in later, and a lot of initiatives like one view of customer and all of these can fall in place subsequently. But I think if you are not doing the customer journey mapping right, then a lot of things can go wrong.
But I think that's easier said than done. Customer journey mapping is a lot of activity if you really go to see. You need expertise to do that really. Okay.
That's where most often people falter.
That's where the consultants come in. Okay.
Right. From my perspective, I think consumer has just too much of information, so I want to leverage the data which I am collecting, and then reacting and probably making use of it by non-intrusive and subscription-based intelligent campaigning being done for the consumers.
What I feel important is engaging the customer as such and understanding what exactly are the requirements, and then delivering the same so that could actually give him the experience that he's expecting out of it. So personalization after the engagement and understanding.
But something very specific if you can come down to, because requirements could be anything, right, from a customer point of view. Is there one priority item that you would tell a retailer for?
So personalization is the end factor that is coming out of it. So by understanding the customer, you would actually be doing the personalization and giving what he's expecting.
Okay, Bhaskar?
Yeah, from my point of view, empowering the cashier, point of sale assistant and the store assistant, okay, is very critical in making the wow factor. Whatever way you implement any technology, end of the day when I check out, if my wow factor is not in that, then it doesn't make any sense. So empowering the cashier or the store assistant or store associate is very important, for which the retailer has to consistently invest, experiment and innovate. That's no other way. Because the click and pay, pick and pay is totally different. The expectation and experience are different. So
Yeah,
we need
so
to
I do agree with you that I'm sure a lot of us who shop have the entire experience really nice until we walked up to the checkout counter, and that's when the real pain of the whole exercise begins in the Indian context. So I think checkout is an important point. Valid point, yeah. Devan?
So for me, it is bridging the gaps through process optimization, enablement through technology, empowerment of the store people where
One thing.
necessary, thereby aiding to being relevant to the customer.
Can you just say that one thing out of all that you said?
So at least in India, I see that process optimization is a key thing which can later on lead to the others.
Okay, good.
Well, I'm not a tech guy, so half of what's been talked about I didn't really follow.
Can't hear
I think half the stuff I didn't actually follow on the tech side, but I'd say as a creative, whether it be the product or the environment that you create or training your people, I think be delightful. Because 6 years ago we worked for Best Buy, and if you check their share price out now from 6 years ago, it's because the guy who runs that business thought about, I will redesign my environment, I will make sure I have all the product that Amazon has, I will price match him, and the most important thing, he trained the Geek Squad to come to your home and fit his products in store.
So you say training.
I'd say delightful, because it's across all the marketing 4 Ps haven't changed in retail. The 4 I've just talked about. You've got to be delightful. And everything else we've talked about, I think an interesting comment of saying a lot of the tech advantages we have will become the norm, the same way the cash point machine has in banking in the past. So we need to take everything that's been done in tech, keep innovating. That's the great thing about technology now. We keep innovating faster and faster. You think 10 years ago, Facebook wasn't in India. It's hardly anywhere in the world.
Okay. Yeah.
So you think tech is going to keep evolving and keep creating new things. Great for consumers, but don't forget the basics.
Yeah. So I'm going to add my point, which is quite similar to what Anil mentioned. While he said customer journey mapping, I think it's about keeping it simple and not to get confused with tech and all that data and all that stuff happening. Whatever you do, keep the process really simple for the customer. That's the simple point I'd like to make. Yeah, with that we'll end, and we have about a minute for questions and answers if anyone's interested to share or comments.
Hi, this is Aditya from Danhambi. Given that we are in the omni-channel forum and everybody's been talking personalization and stuff, so and it's an open question for the panel. Where do you see, given we have issues with India like SMS doesn't work, DM, direct mail has its issues around cost, ultimately where do you see a confluence of online and offline? So what are the channels from an offline perspective that you feel we'll still need to focus on? And obviously online we have mobile, we have social stuff like that, but also from an offline perspective, what are some of the channels that can be explored further from a personalization standpoint, from a one-to-one personalization standpoint?
Okay, anyone? John, would you like, or Adam, would you like to pick that up maybe? Or Hemant? Yeah.
So from a technology perspective, bridging the gaps, setting up the ecosystem is a major challenge for me, because when we go to retailers to see, there is no standard across retailers. I mean, there are standards, but of course, there is also customization in the standard. Interlinking, let's say, planogram to product hierarchy, looking at the GS1 standards, looking at the GPCs, for example, in FMCG. These are preliminary challenges. Once these are set right, I would say it's easy to take from the cloud into a website or into a mobile app or any other channel. Building a omni-channel or a multi-channel is quite easy. So that is one of the key challenges that I feel.
I think just to add to that, something that was said earlier, which was around in-store and assistant applications. So I don't think this is necessarily an issue about how much information we have on our customers, because I think we all have a lot of information on our customers. It's about how we use it. And one of the ways I think bridging from online to offline that's really important is getting it really simple and really easy into the hands of your store associates. Because my expectation as a consumer is you already know all about me from what I've bought before, and I should get the same experience, if not better, in the store as what I get online, personalized to me. So I think one of the biggest opportunities is that bridge into the store, into the hands of the store associate.
Does that make sense? Okay. Anyone else? And we can have one last question maybe.
Question is to the whole panel. Actually, it's the whole technology bit has gone so strong that I've started believing that shopping has become a transaction more than a fun or a delightful experience, especially for a woman. She is, and secondly, the thing is, you don't want to be guided so strongly on what you're buying. You don't want to be, you also want to have some sort of probably mystery about and discovery in the store. So how does this work? How does you knowing everything about me, my shopping style and all, I would do it online. Why I'm coming to the store? I'm coming to the store for something much more than just getting apps guiding me to buy this and buy that. I won't be looking at my mobile at that point, probably.
That's a very fair point, yeah. So Chirag can take that, sure.
So I think you are absolutely spot on. That's exactly where I mentioned that destination creation is the differentiator and not consumer experience. You know, we really need to think.
I mean,
experience in the sense I'm saying, is it just about personalization? Is it about technologies? No, necessarily. You just create probably enough helping points or supporting points. So if at all you need that support for some recommendations, for tips, trends, probably those are available, but at the same time, you're absolutely right. So is it about making it more convenient or is it about making it more personalized? I think that's very important.
So I would again say that if you know the target customer, as a retailer, if you know the target customer, and if it's a department store where there is a lot of discovery to happen, why would you want to put so much of technology that you probably turn the customer away just the moment he comes inside the store? You may not want to do that. So some of our experimentations have been that, okay, we wanted to do something on mobile pass, and we put mobile pass all across the entire store. And we're realizing that that is probably not allowing the customer to kind of do a lot of discovery on their own. Because the customer wants to buy one, if you just allowed to buy just one piece and move out, if you're making it that very convenient also, it's not a great thing. So I think discovery is a good thing to kind of allow.
And then I'll share my view on that.
Right. So very briefly, just to answer your question, in fact, Vikram also pointed out, the entire experience is good, but when you check out and you stand in a queue, queuing becomes a problem. So technology should act as an enabler for business problems. Technology itself is not a solution, right? I mean, technology is just enabler for us. So in our example for the concern which you raised, like, you know, we have a food court which is a cash card based system in our mall, right? Now, you can actually do a top-up online, you can do an order online, you can receive a notification when the food is ready. Now, you want to use that only when there is a queue. Otherwise, you go stand and probably you are the only person, swipe the card and you get going. But if it's on a Sunday, there are 1,000 people standing, you rather use technology and get away with the hassles of standing in a queue for anything and everything, right? That makes the advantage of using the technology.
Okay, my view on this is that we have to keep the technology is available to us, right, as retailers, but we have to make sure it is non-intrusive. So as some of my colleagues said, that it is an enabler that is lying somewhere in the corner, you know, near a pole, a pillar or something like that. You do your shopping and we should not be intruding into it and bombarding you with information, and you start getting SMSs and your mobile app, etc. If you need information about the product, it is available at you know, a few steps away. I think that it's about making it non-intrusive. I think that's a very fair point. Yeah. So it's a difficult balance, easier said than done, but yes, it's a balance we need to do. Okay, thanks a lot everyone. Thanks to the panel.